I hold the divorce papers in my hand, the same ones that will tear apart the life of the woman who ruined me. My stepmother's eyes widen, her lipstick smudging as she stammers, "Please, you can't do this to me, Hannah." I lean back in the courtroom chair, a calm smile on my lips, though my chest pounds like a drum. Every whispered insult she threw at me years ago, every mocking laugh in front of relatives, it all comes flooding back. Now the tables have turned, and she's the one begging for mercy while her empire crumbles in front of her. "You don't get it, do you?" I murmur, sliding the financial documents across the table. "This isn't personal. It's justice." Her hands shake, trying to grab them, but I pull them away, watching her dignity dissolve piece by piece. And then, just when I think she's at her lowest, she smirks, as if she has one last trick left. My name is Hannah Brooks, 28, and I'm telling this because some wounds can't heal until justice is served. I never thought family could be the source of the deepest pain. Growing up, I always believed in love and trust. My father, a kind man with a booming laugh, remarried after my mother passed when I was 10. At first, I tried to accept my stepmother, Lorraine, hoping she would fill the void left behind. But it didn't take long for me to see the truth. Lorraine was charming to everyone else, but cold and calculating with me. The first time she humiliated me, it was at a family reunion in Boston. I was 13, nervously wearing the dress my grandmother had given me, trying to fit in. I was excited to show my father a drawing I had made. "I don't know why you even try, Hannah," Lorraine said loudly, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Your drawing is childish. You should probably leave this to someone talented." Everyone laughed. My cheeks burned. My father frowned, but he didn't intervene. That moment stayed with me. I felt small, worthless, and trapped in a home where the person who should have been a second mother wanted nothing but to belittle me. As the years went by, the humiliation became routine. She'd call me lazy, unworthy, and even spread lies about me to relatives during holiday dinners. "Hannah is hopeless. She'll never succeed. She should just accept that." I could see the pity in my uncle's eyes, the judgment in my aunt's. I learned to smile, to nod, and to swallow the hurt, but it cut deep. High school was even worse. Lorraine made sure to interfere with every opportunity I had. When I won a scholarship for an art program in New York, she mocked it at a family gathering. "Hannah only got in because they lowered the standards for girls like her," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Some relatives laughed, others looked uncomfortable. I wanted to disappear. By the time I graduated from high school, I had learned the rules of survival in her presence. Stay quiet, never trust her, and always keep my victories to myself. But the humiliation didn't end there. When I turned 18, my father left most of the financial matters in her hands, trusting her judgment. That's when she really started to manipulate things. She would deny me things I needed for college, claiming I was careless or ungrateful. She even forged small documents to make it look like I had mismanaged funds, showing them to relatives as proof of my irresponsibility. I felt trapped. I wanted to tell my father, but he was busy with work and trusted her completely. Any attempt to defend myself made me seem overreacting or dramatic. By the time I graduated from college, Lorraine had built a narrative of me being unworthy, untrustworthy, and incapable. My family saw me as a disappointment. It wasn't just her words, it was the way she controlled situations, manipulated perceptions, and used my father's trust as a weapon. I remember one Thanksgiving dinner, my first year out of college, where she casually said in front of everyone, "I've spent years teaching Hannah to behave properly. Too bad some people are beyond saving." Laughter erupted. I sat there, smiling politely, while inside I felt like I was crumbling. It was after that dinner that I made a promise to myself. One day, I would reclaim my life and make sure she understood the pain she caused. I didn't want to be petty. I wanted justice, not for revenge's sake alone, but to prove to myself that I was capable, strong, and worthy despite everything she had said. Years passed. I worked tirelessly. Law school was grueling, but I poured every ounce of energy into it. I volunteered at legal aid offices, interned at firms, and studied cases where people fought back against manipulative figures. I learned not only the law, but also how to anticipate deceit, how to read people, and how to turn every weakness into an advantage. Meanwhile, Lorraine continued her life of manipulation and charm in the family. She married my father's friends' children off, made herself the center of attention, and boasted about her perfect family image. No one knew the truth behind closed doors. It wasn't until my father passed unexpectedly that I realized the perfect opportunity had presented itself. With his passing, she assumed control over the family estate and wealth. She was arrogant, careless, and overconfident. It was the perfect storm. I had the skills, the knowledge, and the right moment.
Every insult, every whispered lie, every humiliating remark replayed in my mind. I remembered the pain she caused me, the shame, and the isolation, but I also remembered my promise to prove my worth, to reclaim my dignity, and to ensure she understood the consequences of her actions. That's when I decided that one day I would be the one in control, not to destroy her completely, but to show her the power of truth, intelligence, and perseverance, to show her that someone she had belittled and humiliated could rise, succeed, and turn the tables. The betrayal had marked me, yes, but it also shaped me into someone relentless, observant, and prepared, and I would wait patiently for the moment to act, to take the first step toward the ultimate reckoning. After years of watching her manipulate everyone around her, I knew I couldn't act impulsively. This had to be precise, calculated, and clean. I wasn't after chaos, I was after justice, and to achieve it, I had to become someone she would never see coming. I started by researching everything about her life, financial records, investments, property holdings, and even minor legal disputes she'd been involved in. I spent countless nights at my small apartment in Chicago, hunched over my laptop, cross-referencing details, and creating a timeline of her moves. Every account she controlled, every shell company she had set up, every vulnerability in her contracts, I documented them all. The more I dug, the more I realized how careless she had been. Her arrogance was her weakness. Next, I sharpened my legal skills. I wanted to be in the perfect position to act when the right case came along. I didn't just want to work in any law firm. I wanted to be the lawyer who would one day oversee a case that directly impacted her. I joined a firm specializing in divorce and property settlements, building my reputation quietly. I volunteered for complex financial cases, learning the tactics top lawyers use to dismantle elaborate schemes. My mentor, a sharp older attorney named Claire, had a no-nonsense attitude and often reminded me, "Knowledge is power, Hannah. Learn every angle before you make your move." I listened and absorbed every word. Meanwhile, I had to be careful around family. Lorraine still held sway over many relatives, and she was always present at gatherings, smiling, making subtle digs, and reinforcing her perfect image. I learned to act neutral, even friendly, while keeping my distance. I started attending charity events, building my network, and collecting information without raising suspicion. I even befriended some of her acquaintances, listening to her boastful stories and careless remarks. Each word she spoke, each slip of arrogance, became part of my strategy. To gain an advantage, I also studied psychology. I read about manipulation, deceit, and the way people behave under pressure. Lorraine was cunning, but predictable. She thrived on attention and fear. Her own fear of losing control was her Achilles heel. If I could keep calm and patient, I could use her need for dominance against her. The final piece of my plan was timing. I knew that patience was as important as preparation. Acting too soon would ruin everything. Acting too late could mean losing the opportunity forever. I waited for a case to present itself, one that involved a client divorcing a manipulative spouse with hidden assets. When that case landed on my desk, I felt a thrill I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. The details were perfect: financial mismanagement, attempts at deception, and enough complexity to challenge even experienced lawyers. Most importantly, Lorraine's methods mirrored the behavior of the client I was now representing. It was a legal mirror of the pain she had caused me. I started mapping out every step, creating backup plans, and imagining how she would react. I rehearsed meetings in my mind, anticipating objections and preparing counterarguments. I even ran through scenarios with a trusted friend from law school, Mark, who was sharp and discreet. He didn't know it was personal, but he helped me strategize as if it were any high-stakes case. Every evening, I revisited the family moments that had scarred me, the laughter at my expense, the whispered insults, the endless belittling. I didn't let anger control me, I let it fuel my focus. The betrayal had taught me that strength came from preparation, from patience, and from using the system rather than trying to confront her directly. By the time I finally stepped into the courtroom representing my client, I was ready, not just with legal knowledge, but with the power of timing, the edge of strategy, and the calm that comes from years of preparation. Every document I presented, every question I asked, every argument I made was deliberate. I watched the opposition side struggle, unaware that one day the same skills would be used in my personal mission against the woman who had made me feel unworthy. I wasn't just planning revenge, I was preparing to reclaim my life, piece by piece, in a way that no one, not even Lorraine, would be able to dismiss. The stage was set. I only had to wait for the perfect moment, and that moment was closer than she could ever imagine. The day finally arrived. I walked into the courthouse with calm steps, my leather briefcase in hand, every document meticulously organized. Today wasn't about anger, it was about precision. I could feel Lorraine's presence before I even saw her. She was sitting across the room, perfectly poised, her smile tight, like she had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. "Good morning, Hannah," she said, her voice sugary, masking the tension I could see in her eyes.
I smiled politely. "Morning, Lorraine." From the first exchange, I noticed how she underestimated me. That had been her mistake all those years ago. She thought I would be intimidated. She thought I would hesitate. She was wrong. The case I was handling involved uncovering hidden assets, reviewing financial statements, and tracing funds through complicated business structures. Every loophole, every careless record, every false claim she made in her own life mirrored the methods I was now dismantling in court. I presented evidence systematically, patiently, showing the judge the chain of concealed transactions, the discrepancies in reports, and the attempts to mislead the other party. Every revelation hit her like a silent punch. At first, she tried to maintain composure, flicking her hair, whispering to her attorney, throwing subtle glances at me. But with every document I revealed, every clever cross-examination, her confidence wavered. She leaned forward, whispering urgently to her attorney, but it was too late. The groundwork I had laid over years, my knowledge of manipulation, my preparation, my understanding of her arrogance, was unstoppable. I watched her reaction closely, savoring the shift. The woman who had made me feel small and worthless was now scrambling, flustered, unable to maintain her perfect facade. Her hands shook as she tried to cover her mistakes, trying to redirect attention, but every attempt backfired. I remained calm, collected, answering objections with facts and logic. During a particularly tense moment, she tried one last bluff. "Your evidence is circumstantial," she said, eyes blazing. I leaned in slightly, keeping my voice calm. "On the contrary, Lorraine, the paper trail is thorough and indisputable. Every claim can be verified. Even your own signature appears in places that contradict your statements." Her lips pressed into a thin line. I could see panic flicker in her eyes. This wasn't just a legal loss, it was the exposure of her arrogance, her lies, her manipulation. Every relative she had humiliated, every moment she had taunted me came rushing back, and now she was powerless to stop the collapse. The judge asked for one last summary of assets, and I laid them out clearly, item by item. Every hidden account, every mismanaged property, every attempt at deception. I could feel Lorraine's breathing quicken as she realized the total magnitude of what was unfolding. Her fortune, the wealth she flaunted for years, was unraveling before her eyes. By the end of the day, the verdict was clear. Her attempts to retain control failed. She was forced to surrender significant assets, leaving her status and comfort drastically diminished. As the court adjourned, I noticed her hands trembling, her smile gone, replaced by an expression of disbelief and regret. Outside the courthouse, she caught up with me. "Hannah, please, I made mistakes. I'll do anything." I looked at her, my expression steady. "Lorraine, this isn't about punishment, it's about truth. You built your life on lies, and now the consequences are real. You had years to change, but you didn't." She fell silent, tears brimming, and for the first time in years she saw me, not the timid girl she mocked, but a woman who had risen above humiliation, who had taken control with intelligence and patience. I walked away, feeling a strange mix of relief and empowerment. I had faced the woman who had destroyed my reputation and turned the tables completely. The strike wasn't violent, it didn't need to be. It was precise, methodical, and unstoppable. And as I left the courthouse, I realized something. The moment I had waited for so long wasn't just about her downfall, it was about my transformation. I wasn't just the victim anymore, I was the one holding the power, and for the first time, it felt like freedom. The courtroom was quiet, the tension almost unbearable. Lorraine sat there, eyes wide, clutching the last few documents that had once represented her power. I could see every flicker of panic, every moment of disbelief, as she realized that the life she had so carefully built was slipping through her fingers. I stepped forward to deliver the final statement.
My voice was calm, steady, but every word carried the weight of years of humiliation, of every insult, of every moment she had tried to make me feel unworthy. "Your actions," I said, looking directly at her, "have consequences. You manipulated, deceived, and controlled, thinking no one would ever challenge you, but truth has a way of coming to light. Today, the law sees what you have done, and justice is served." She tried to speak, her voice trembling. "Hannah, please, I didn't mean—" I raised a hand, gently but firmly. "No excuses, Lorraine. You had every opportunity to be decent, to treat people with respect, and yet you chose cruelty. You've lost more than money today. You've lost the illusion of control, the respect you thought you commanded, and the power you abused for years." The judge nodded approvingly, and the final settlement was confirmed. Her assets were divided, her influence over family and property dramatically reduced. Every investment she had hidden
Was accounted for, and her attempts at deception were now public record. I could see the pride draining from her, replaced with a mixture of shame and fear. Outside the courtroom, the sun was shining, but it felt different, brighter, freer. Lorraine approached me, her usual confident posture gone. "Hannah, I never thought—" "You never thought I'd rise above your cruelty," I said, my voice soft but unwavering. "You never thought I would have the patience, the skill, or the courage to reclaim what's mine. But here I am, and I've learned something important through all of this. Revenge isn't about anger. It's about justice and proving to yourself that you are stronger than those who try to break you." She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. For the first time in years, she saw me, not as the timid, awkward girl she once mocked, but as a woman confident, capable, and unshakable. Walking away, I felt an unexpected lightness. The strike, the preparation, the years of planning, it had all been worth it. But the victory wasn't just hers to lose, it was mine to embrace. I realized that in taking control of this situation, I had taken control of my own life. That evening, I sat in my apartment, reflecting on everything. I remembered every family gathering where I had been ridiculed, every cruel word, every false accusation, and I realized that while the wounds had been deep, they had also made me resilient. I had turned pain into focus, humiliation into determination, and betrayal into motivation. I didn't celebrate with champagne or fanfare. That wasn't what this was about. Instead, I felt a quiet sense of closure, a peace that comes from knowing the truth has been revealed and justice, in its own way, has been served. I had proven to myself, and to anyone who doubted me, that intelligence, patience, and courage could triumph over manipulation and cruelty. A few weeks later, I heard whispers that Lorraine was trying to rebuild her life, carefully and cautiously, avoiding attention. It didn't matter. I didn't need to see her suffer anymore. The lesson was already learned, and the scales were balanced. For me, the greatest victory wasn't the loss she experienced, it was the freedom I had gained. The humiliation that had once defined me no longer held power over my life. I was no longer the girl she had called unworthy. I was Hannah Brooks, a woman who had endured, who had learned, and who had emerged stronger. And as I looked out my apartment window at the city skyline, I smiled quietly to myself. The past had shaped me, but it didn't define me. I was ready to move forward, not with anger or bitterness, but with the confidence that comes from knowing that justice, true, clever, patient justice, had been served.